She lost everything overnight 5 years ago. Now she's coming back, into the heart of a CEO, and into the life of his son. Share your thoughts with us in the comments, because every word from the heart is a precious part of this journey. That night, everything felt like a nightmare. Emily Carter had taken a temporary job just to pay her college tuition serving at a luxury yacht party. From the outside, the massive yacht anchored offshore looked glamorous and harmless. But the moment she stepped inside, the stares changed. The guests weren't looking at her like a waitress. They were looking at her like she was a gift. At first, she tried to ignore it and just do her job. But soon, she realized someone had slipped something into her drink. Her head was spinning. The sounds around her grew muffled, and she struggled to stay on her feet. The last thing she remembered before everything went dark were footsteps behind her and a man's shadow moving closer. Emily woke up the next morning in a small cabin on the yacht, her clothes disheveled, her body shaking. She bolted outside in panic. She couldn't trust anyone. Only one person had set her up for that party, her cousin, Vanessa Carter. Emily had trusted her. But now, everything made sense. Vanessa had led her straight into a trap. She ran. She ran until the end of the night. By the time she reached the shore, she was trembling and in tears. Months later, she found out she was pregnant. That night had broken her, but it had also changed everything. Emily never once saw the baby as a mistake. She named him Leo. She raised him with her own hands, protected him, kept him safe. But shortly after giving birth, the second blow hit her. The hospital record of Leo's birth vanished overnight. And when she returned to her room after a brief checkup, Leo was gone. Vanessa's sudden return confirmed everything Emily feared. You took him," Emily said, her eyes filling with tears. Vanessa just smiled. "What did you have to offer a child like him? Leo is my son now. I told Ethan that. He accepted it. He doesn't even know your name." Emily's world shattered. Vanessa had played her game for years. She'd stolen Leo, convinced Ethan Blake she was the mother, and stepped into a life of wealth and power. Meanwhile, Emily was left behind, stripped of her identity, her child, and her future. But Emily Carter wasn't done, because a mother's heart never forgets. And one day, Leo would remember who his real mother was. Years had passed. Emily looked like any ordinary mother now, but her every waking moment was spent thinking of ways to get Leo back. She had lived under the radar, never using her real name, taking low-profile jobs, staying out of sight. But the fire inside her never stopped burning. Her determination only grew stronger with time. Leo was 5 now. She remembered him as if it were yesterday's tiny fingers, the way he looked up at her the first time he opened his eyes. And now, that same child was growing up with another woman, calling someone else mom. Emily had finally made up her mind. She was going to see him again, and she was going to find a way to remind him of who she truly was. So, she took the first step. She got a job at one of the subsidiaries of Blake Group, the fashion empire owned by Ethan Blake. It was just a small internship position. But that company, it was where Vanessa claimed to work, and where she often brought Leo to visit Ethan's office. Now, Emily was inside that very building. Every morning, her heart raced as she walked through the doors because maybe, just maybe, she'd run into Leo. And then, it happened. In the company cafeteria, a small boy stood in line, trying to reach for a chocolate pudding. His shoes, his haircut. Emily's chest tightened. "Leo," she whispered. The boy turned and looked at her. And after a few seconds of silence, "Mommy," he said. Time froze. Emily didn't know what to do. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she had to pull herself together. Because Vanessa was there. She stormed over and grabbed Leo by the arm. "Is this woman bothering you?" she snapped. Leo shook his head, but Vanessa's glare silenced him. "If I see you near us again, I won't pretend you don't exist next time." "Got it," she hissed through clenched teeth. Emily said nothing. She just etched the look in Leo's eyes into her heart and turned away. But something inside her whispered, the fight is just beginning. Vanessa had fooled her once, but not this time. Emily was going to get her son back. And her name, her truth, her life. And Ethan Blake. He needed to know the truth, too. But Ethan had been living with a void in his memory for years. He could never remember the face of the woman from that night on the yacht. All he had left was a necklace, and for years, he'd been searching for her. But each time, he was led astray. Always by Vanessa. Emily was done staying silent. She was ready to take the first step toward Leo, toward Ethan, and toward reclaiming the life that had been stolen from her. And that one step would uncover more than just the truth. It would change everything. Emily wasn't running anymore. Every morning, as she walked through the doors of Blake Group, she wore a calm smile, but inside, a storm raged. That flicker of recognition in Leo's eyes had lit a fire of hope in her. But it wasn't enough. Leo felt a connection, yes, but he didn't know who she truly was. And Vanessa's web of lies still surrounded his world. That morning, Emily was called to deliver documents to a meeting room where Ethan Blake was present. As she opened the door, the room fell silent. Her steps slowed. Ethan looked up with those sharp eyes, and for a brief moment, their eyes met. 1 second, 2 seconds. Then Ethan slightly furrowed his brows, as if something familiar had just tugged at his memory. Emily's serene expression stirred something in him, someplace, some long-lost moment. "Have we met before?" he asked quietly, unsure. Emily swallowed hard. "I don't know, Mr. Blake. Maybe fate has a habit of showing us the same faces more than once." Ethan didn't respond. He just looked away. And just then, Vanessa walked in. Her eyes locked on Emily instantly. With a fake smile, she wrapped her arm around Ethan's and said sweetly, "I'll pick up Leo after the meeting. He has a doctor's appointment." Ethan simply nodded. Emily, without taking her eyes off them, calmly placed the folder on the table and turned to leave. But one thought echoed in her mind. "That child is your son, and I'm not the woman pretending to be his mother." That evening, Leo sat quietly in Ethan's office. His eyes drifted toward a photo frame in the corner. Inside was a picture of him as a baby. He stared at it, and something stirred in his heart. A scent he couldn't describe. A warmth he could almost feel. But no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't picture Vanessa holding him like that. "Dad," he said softly, "is the woman who gave birth to me really my mom?" Ethan looked at his son, surprised. "Of course she is. Why would you ask something like that?" Leo looked down. "I don't know. Sometimes it feels like I remember someone else. Someone with really kind eyes. She shows up in my dreams." Ethan felt a chill go down his spine. That night, after everyone had gone home, he sat alone in his office, and for the first time in years, he pulled up the old security footage from the night that had changed everything. Meanwhile, Vanessa was spiraling. Emily being inside the company, Leo's growing attachment to her, Ethan's growing distance, everything was cracking. And one thought haunted her. "If I lose this game, I won't just lose Leo. I'll lose everything." And she had a lot to lose. Because there was one more secret she'd been keeping. She wasn't the only one who had Leo's birth records erased. That night, in her tiny room, Emily opened a drawer and pulled out a letter. It was the last thing her mother had written before she passed away. "One day, the truth will come to light. But when it does, there will be people who will try to silence you. Be strong, Emily. Because the truth won't just change your life, it will change your son's future too." Emily was no longer just a mother. She was ready to become the voice of truth and justice. And Ethan Blake had never been closer to uncovering the shadows of his past. Ethan Blake sat alone in his office long past midnight. The footage playing in front of him was from 5 years ago, the only clear recording from that yacht party. One brief moment. A woman's terrified glance caught on camera as she ran toward the sea. He froze the frame, moved closer, and his heart nearly stopped. The woman in the image was Emily Carter. His mind spun in chaos. The lies he had believed from Vanessa for years crumbled in a single frame. For so long, he thought the missing hospital records on Leo's birth were just a glitch in the system. But now, he knew. The truth wasn't buried. It had been silenced. Without wasting another second, he grabbed his phone and called his assistant. "Look into Emily Carter. I want every document from 5 years ago, deleted birth records, sealed files, anything. And find the nurses who were on duty when Leo was born." That morning, when Emily arrived early for work, Ethan's secretary quietly directed her to the CEO's office. She hesitated but walked in. Ethan was standing, waiting for her. A folder sat on his desk, and in his hand, the necklace. "Emily," he said, voice trembling but steady. "I've kept this necklace for years. That night, I couldn't remember your face, but now I do." Emily's eyes widened. Her breath caught in her throat. Ethan looked straight at her. "Leo is my son, and you're his mother, aren't you?" Tears welled up in Emily's eyes. And after years of holding it in, the answer finally escaped her lips. "Yes." The silence in the room was heavy, not with pain, but with something deeper. a kind of quiet rebirth. And then the door opened. Vanessa walked in, holding files, her familiar fake smile plastered on her face. But this time, the game was over. Ethan's gaze turned cold. Vanessa, is there anything you'd like to tell us? She froze. The panic in her chest crept into her voice. What? What are you talking about? Ethan picked up the DNA test from the desk. You're not Leo's biological mother. The file slipped from Vanessa's hands. Her flawless makeup cracked like a broken mask. No, no. He's my son. I raised him. I fed him. I protected him. Emily stepped forward, tears on her cheeks. No, Vanessa. I gave birth to him. You only stole him. Vanessa let out a desperate cry. You stole my life. I sent you to that boat. I pushed you into that darkness. But somehow you always came back. Why you? Ethan, now calm and cold, asked one final question. When did you take Leo? Vanessa's voice was low, broken. The day he was born. I paid off the nurse. Had the records wiped. Emily was unconscious, and I took him. I brought him to you. Because I wanted you. Ethan stood silently for a moment, then spoke. But you lied. You raised Leo inside a lie. You erased Emily like she didn't exist. Vanessa collapsed onto the floor, speechless, hollow. It was over. That night, just before bed, Leo rested his head on Emily's lap. Are you really my mom? He whispered. Emily gently ran her fingers through his hair. Yes, sweetheart. I was the first one to hold you. I was the first one to love you. Leo closed his eyes slowly. I knew it. You smell like the woman in my dreams. And that night, for the first time in years, Emily watched her son sleep at peace. Vanessa sat alone in the dusty guest room of the Blake estate. The only thing that filled the air was the echo of the past. Every lie she had built her life on had collapsed one by one. Leo no longer called her mom. Ethan looked at her now as nothing more than a stranger. And Emily. Emily wore her victory, quietly carried it not with pride, but through tears. But Vanessa still had one thing left to lose: revenge. One morning, while Ethan, Emily, and Leo were having breakfast together for the first time, Ethan's phone rang. It was his executive assistant. Mr. Blake, we discovered that the original will belonging to Emily Carter's mother, the one meant to reach you, was swapped with forged documents a few years ago. Do you want to file criminal charges? Emily's hands trembled. That will. It was supposed to fund my fashion school scholarship. Vanessa took that from me. Ethan responded calmly. No, there won't be a criminal case. But start the legal process immediately. Everything Emily was meant to have, make sure it's returned to her. Emily just stared at him. It was the first time in her life someone had truly stood up for her. Defended her not out of guilt, but because they believed she deserved it. That evening, Ethan came to her with a decision in his heart. In his hand was a simple, elegant box. This ring isn't about proposing. It's about honoring who you are. Not to ask for forgiveness, or love, or promises. Just to say, I'm with you. Emily was quiet. She placed her hand over her heart. I never fought against you, Ethan. I was just trying to survive for my son. But maybe I can learn to walk beside you. Ethan took her hands. That's all I've ever wanted. Just then, cheerful voices echoed down the hallway. Mom, Dad, Mason says if you guys get married, we want to be the ring bearers at the wedding. Emily and Ethan smiled. Leo and Mason came running into the room. The two boys looked at each other and shouted at the same time. We're a family now. 2 months later, Emily began her role as the lead designer at Blake Group's fashion studio. Her debut collection received a standing ovation at Paris Fashion Week. Her name began to shine like a rising star in the fashion world. But for her, the only applause that ever truly mattered was Leo hugging her every night and whispering, "Good night, Mom." Vanessa, meanwhile, was sent overseas by her family. She never returned. Maybe she lived with regret. Maybe still with bitterness. But she no longer lived in Emily's shadow. Now, at the edge of the sea on the same shore where she had once fled into darkness 5 years ago, Emily was building sandcastles with her children. Ethan stood a few steps back, holding a camera, smiling as he filmed them. Emily looked over her shoulder. Her eyes no longer held fear, only faith. I used to hope that one day, my son would remember me, she whispered. Ethan walked up and wrapped his arm around her shoulders. He never forgot you, he said gently. He just needed time. Emily rested her head against him. And in that moment, Their story no longer lived in the shadows of the past, but in the very first line of a new fairy tale yet to be written. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give the video a like. Share your thoughts with us in the comments, because every word from the heart is a precious part of this journey. With every new story, we begin again, stronger, together. See you in the next video.